What if I told you college was never really about education, it was about control? From the time we're kids, we're sold the same dream. Go to school, make good grades, get into college, and everything else will fall into place. But the moment that tuition bill hits and those loans get approved, reality starts to look a lot different. At Next Level Studios, we're here to keep you educated and informed because when you're part of the system, it's hard to see the bigger picture. We believe change starts with knowledge. No gatekeeping, no lies, just truth. Every year, hundreds of thousands of students flood into college chasing the same degrees, but no one ever tells them to check the numbers. In many cases, only 60,000 jobs exist in an entire field, while over 300,000 students are enrolled in that same major. Do the math. That means hundreds of thousands are walking straight into unemployment with a diploma in one hand and debt in the other. And the colleges, they know this. They know most students won't ever work in their field. They know the odds are stacked against you, but they take your money anyway because they get paid whether you succeed or not. Then you graduate, move back home, and realize your degree doesn't guarantee anything. Not the job, not the life, not the freedom they promised. You didn't invest in your future. You were sold into it. And now they expect you to carry the weight in silence while they profit off your struggle. It starts with pressure. Pressure from teachers, parents, counselors telling you college is the only path to success. That if you don't go, you'll be flipping burgers or failing at life. So you apply, you enroll, you borrow, and before you even understand interest rates or debt-to-income ratios, you've signed your future away. The colleges don't warn you about what's coming. They don't talk about job placement rates. They don't break down starting salaries compared to your loan balance. They don't tell you how hard it will be to climb out because if they did, you might say no. Instead, they sell you a fantasy. College brochures show happy students on green lawns, professors shaking hands, young adults finding themselves in ivy-covered dorms. But what they're really selling is a product, a degree with no guaranteed return, and they know you'll pay for it because you've been trained to believe you have no other choice. Let's be clear, this isn't just a bad decision. It's a system, one where government-backed loans mean colleges get paid whether you graduate or not, one where banks make billions in interest, where entire industries exist to collect on the debt you took at 18 and will still be paying at 38. And the wildest part, in many cases, you can't even file bankruptcy to escape it. This is debt that sticks, debt that grows, debt that buries. Meanwhile, the people who told you college was the key, most of them didn't even do the math. But we did, and the numbers don't lie. Let's talk about the schools themselves. These institutions claim to be centers of higher learning, but many have become glorified corporations. They spend millions on marketing to lure students in. Flashy dorms, state-of-the-art gyms, campus tours that feel like resort previews. But behind the scenes, it's all about revenue. Colleges now operate more like businesses than educational institutions. The goal is enrollment, not enlightenment. They push majors with low job placement rates because they know most students won't ask the hard questions. They've mastered the art of selling identity, prestige, and hope, while quietly building their profit margins on your future struggles. And while you're focused on passing exams, they're cashing checks. They hike tuition year after year, even when wages stay flat. They lock you into meal plans and fees you didn't agree to. They spend big on athletic programs, luxury buildings, and administrative salaries while actual education quality suffers. The scam is deeper than just debt. It's emotional manipulation. It's exploiting young people at their most vulnerable moment when they're unsure, scared, and eager to succeed. And when it doesn't work out, they're not held accountable. There's no refund, no apology, no responsibility. You're left to figure it out. That's the game. And here's what no one tells you. Many of the degrees being pushed don't even teach real-world skills. You spend 4 years learning theory, memorizing facts, and writing papers only to graduate and realize you have no idea how to actually survive in the world. No knowledge of taxes, no financial literacy, no training in negotiation, entrepreneurship, or ownership. The truth, you were never meant to be free. Here's the part they never put in the brochure: college isn't just books and lectures. For many students, it's the first time they're away from home, with no supervision, no structure, and no real preparation for what's coming. And what are they stepping into? A world of parties, drugs, peer pressure, mental health breakdowns, and unfiltered freedom. Some campuses feel more like club scenes than schools. Fraternity houses where alcohol poisoning is common. Dorm rooms where sex and drugs are the daily norm. And classrooms full of students who are physically present but mentally gone. Parents are so quick to send their kids off to college thinking they're giving them a better life without realizing they might be sending them straight into chaos. Some universities aren't much different than the streets, just with better buildings. The hormones are real. The distractions are everywhere. And for students who aren't grounded, focused, and mentally prepared, college becomes less about learning and more about surviving. That's why so many never finish. They get caught up, fall behind, or spiral out. Some get pregnant, some overdose, some just quit. But no one talks about this because that would ruin the fantasy. The fantasy that college is a sacred, safe space for growth, when in reality, for many, it's where the spiral begins. This isn't about shaming students. It's about exposing the system. Because if parents knew the full truth, they'd think twice before blindly handing over their children and their wallets. This isn't higher education. It's higher risk. And while students drown in distractions, the institutions continue to protect their image. Scandals are buried. Assault cases are ignored. Party culture is normalized because it brings in money. The more students enroll, the more profit the school collects. No matter how many drop out, suffer silently, or disappear completely. It's a numbers game, and you are the number. Meanwhile, the same parents who were promised that college would be the best years of their child's life are left confused when their son or daughter comes home depressed, addicted, pregnant, or broken. But the schools won't talk about that because they're not in the business of healing. They're in the business of billing. And the mental toll? It's real. Students face massive pressure to succeed, but very few are given the tools to handle the stress. Therapy resources are often underfunded, counseling offices are overbooked, and the unspoken rule becomes suffer quietly, pretend everything's fine. Now combine that with debt, with the fear of failure, with the pressure to make it all worth it. You start to realize this isn't just a flawed system, it's a setup for collapse. And while all this is happening, the people who sold you the dream, the banks, the schools, the advisors, step back and say, you should have known better. But how? At 18, no one taught you how to calculate interest, avoid predatory loans, or analyze a job market. All they said was, go to college. And you listened. Let's talk about return on investment. You were told college was an investment in your future, that no matter how expensive it would pay off in the end. But in reality, that return is far from guaranteed. Many graduates walk across the stage with a degree in one hand and over $100,000 in debt on their back. Some make it into their field. Others are forced to take jobs that don't require a degree at all just to survive. You'll find former students working at call centers, retail counters, delivery routes, all while their loan balances grow with interest. This is what happens when you convince an entire generation to pursue education without transparency. Colleges rarely disclose job placement rates before enrollment. They don't break down starting salaries versus loan debt. They don't show students how long it will realistically take to pay it off. Because if they did, most people would hesitate. They call it higher education. But there's nothing educated about signing 20-year loan agreements at 18 years old before you've even learned how to file taxes or manage a bank account. The system knows this, and it banks on your ignorance. And for those who want to drop out or transfer midway, the debt doesn't disappear. You leave with no degree, and the bill still follows. That's the part they never mention. Even if you don't finish college, the debt still finishes you. This isn't just student loan debt. It's modern-day indentured servitude with a Wi-Fi password. And while students are buried in debt and parents are left questioning where it all went wrong, there's a group of people who continue to benefit without consequence: the lenders, the schools, and the government. Let's be clear, student loans are one of the most profitable forms of debt in the country. They're nearly impossible to discharge through bankruptcy. They accrue interest while you're still in school, and in many cases, they follow people for life. This isn't a flaw. This is the model, and it gets worse. The federal government is making billions from student loans. According to the Congressional Budget Office, the government earns more from student loan interest than it does from many large industries. That means there's no real incentive to fix the system because too many people at the top are eating off your struggle. Meanwhile, colleges raise tuition without improving outcomes. They expand programs that have no demand in the workforce. They brag about diversity and inclusion, but ignore rising dropout rates, mental health crises, and growing homelessness among students. So the question becomes, who is college really for? Because it's clearly not designed for the average student trying to survive. It's not for the single mother trying to build a better life. It's not for the first-generation student who was never taught how to navigate debt. And it's definitely not for the ones who believe the dream would be enough. It's for the system, a system that profits when you fail and keeps winning even when you lose. But what if you do everything right? What if you graduate, land a job in your field, and start your career the way they told you to? Even then, the weight of debt doesn't go away. In fact, for many, it becomes the one thing that dictates every major life decision. Can you buy a house? Not with 6 figures of student loan debt. Can you start a business? Not when your monthly payment rivals a mortgage. Can you take a risk, pivot careers, or pursue something you are passionate about? Not when you're locked into a repayment plan that owns your future. This is what college doesn't prepare you for, because college doesn't teach freedom. It teaches compliance. You're trained to follow directions, submit assignments on time, pass standardized tests, and trust that the system will reward you for obeying. But outside those gates, real life doesn't work like that. Out here, it's about critical thinking. It's about learning how money works, how power operates, how to protect your peace, and how to question the things that were handed to you as truth. And the biggest truth of all, college is not a scam because it fails everyone. It's a scam because it works perfectly for the people who designed it. You were never supposed to win. You were supposed to believe you had to pay for permission to exist. At Next Level Studios, we don't just expose the game, we show you how to break out of it. So what now? If college was never meant to guarantee success, and the system profits off the illusion of opportunity, what's the alternative? The truth is, you don't need a degree to be educated. You don't need a classroom to build value. And you don't need permission from an institution to succeed. In today's world, skills matter more than titles. Entrepreneurship is rising. Trade work is booming. Online education has made it possible to learn almost anything for a fraction of the cost. And real-world experience still holds more weight than memorized information. But most people never get the chance to explore those options because they were told there was only one path. And that's why this documentary exists. To open eyes, to shake foundations, to force the question, what if everything we were taught about success was a lie? This isn't about saying college is bad for everyone. It's about telling the truth that colleges refuse to admit it's not for everyone. It's not always worth it, and it's not your only option. You are not a failure if you walk away. You are not lost if you never go. And you are not behind if you take the time to think critically about your future before you hand it over to a system that profits off your uncertainty. This is Next Level Studios. We're not here to go viral. We're here to keep you educated and informed because change starts with knowledge. Click for the next video and never stop questioning the system.